Hi. Haha. How was your pandemic going? Mine was going great. My boyfriend got the Rona twice. Once at the height and once afterwards because he got on a plane, but that wasn't his fault because someone on the plane was being gross. And my mom got married and I learned how to do braids. I took my braids out yesterday because they were getting on my nerves. But yeah, I also went to a concert on Tuesday, so that was fun. Um, Pretty eventful time. By the title of this video, I'm sure you can guess that I'm going to be talking about Assassin's Creed. So, yeah, this is going to be a long form Assassin's Creed video. I played the very first one in 2008 because my sister had it and she loved these games. I didn't finish one first. I got bored, went to play two, finished two, and went back to play one and proceeded to jump into the water because I forgot that Altair can't swim. Yeah. Um, and don't do that. We'll talk about why not to do that later. But yeah, don't do that. I owned every game up to Black Flag for years and years, and nothing beyond that because I didn't feel like it. And then the pandemic hit, and I asked my dad the difference between an Xbox One and an Xbox One X. And my dad, being the man that he is, had an extra Xbox One X because not One X, an extra Xbox One because of course he did. And he gave it to me, and pretty dope. And now I own every single Assassin's Creed game that has come out that was a AAA title. None of the 2.3 games. I also don't own, well, I technically own Rebels, but I'll get there. Um, yeah, so I got Unity, Syndicate, Origins, Odyssey, and then Valhalla when it came out. I got the Xbox right before Valhalla came out. And I got the idea while playing Unity to talk about these games, because I've seen people do like short little videos about like, oh, Assassin's Creed, however many years later, Assassin's Creed 3, however many years later, but no one's done like a long thing. So that's what I'm gonna do, because I don't value my free time. I played Liberation, and I'm not gonna play Freedom Cry because while I adore Adewale, the port on the Switch has every time I climb up something to do a viewpoint, my camera gets all flippy flippy, so I can't see anything. And I refuse to play Rogue because I love Achilles too much, and I'm not about to watch the downfall of his brotherhood. I'm not doing that. Um, Obviously, there are going to be heavy spoilers, but it is my firm opinion that for a game that has been out for over a decade now, the first one came out in like 2007 or something like that. For a game that has been out for over a decade, if you consider this video spoilers for the first Assassin's Creed game especially, but up to Black Flag, that is not my problem. Yeah. Uh, so I have two disclaimers before we start. One, this is my opinion. I respect the discussion, but let's have a calm and collected conversation about it. And I'm open to how other people view this. This is strictly my interpretation of these games. And if you decide to get belligerent, I'm not going to engage with you. Um, and also, last little point, I know and I recognize that there are other things happening in the world doing this video. When I got this idea, the pandemic was happening. We were like dead ass in the midst of it. No vaccine was in sight yet. I understand that. This video is meant to be fun. This is all in good fun. You don't have to care about this video game that I played and still play because I have replayed these games, at least like the first seven. I've replayed these games over and over again and I love them. This is just to have fun. Adult life is traumatizing enough as it is, so let's talk about something that no one cares about because it's just an escape. Cool. So I bought these like face paint pens because I wanted to put the symbol on my face. I can feel it drying out. I wanted to put the symbol on my face and yeah, you don't have to mute yourself. I put you guys on mute. Uh it's a lot wider than I thought it was going to be. Anyway, so Assassin's Creed is the first game. It's just called Assassin's Creed. It's the story of a centuries-long battle between the Brotherhood of Assassins and the Order of Templars, or Templar Order. Both of them use Isu artifacts, pieces of Eden from the first civilization. We'll get into that later. Using genetic information from the descendants, namely Desmond right now, and a machine called the Animus, the modern day Templars are searching the memories of ancestors to locate maps, apples, a sword, a staff, the shroud, and other artifacts later in the other games. Every game follows the same basic formula. Contact with the Templars sets our player character on a journey to assassinate key Templars. They kill the Grandmaster and also become a Master Assassin. Usually, they give the assassins a temporary upper hand as far as you're concerned with your part in the game at least. Um, the seesaw of Templar power is the backbone of the game. There's usually a significant historical event happening with our player character interacting with real people, but it's very, very important to note that the event is happening around them. They are not part of the event, and anything that they might be part of is a fake thing that like didn't happen in the actual event, but because there's no record of it and we don't know what was happening at that time, it's fine. Yeah. So, in the modern era, in the first Assassin's Creed game, Desmond Miles has been kidnapped by modern day Templars called Abstergo. He's being forced to relive the memories of Altair Ibn Lahad. I really hope I said that right. Altair is an arrogant assassin whose error causes some great strife for his brotherhood. He is made a novice and given Templar targets. Through his journey, he learns that there are things he doesn't understand, and the end result is Altair having to kill his master due to corruption by the apple. Said apple shows a map and that Abstergo needed, so Desmond has outlived his usefulness and is going to be killed. When you play the game and the game ends, Desmond walks into his room and is looking at a wall with his newly unlocked eagle vision, so that he can see symbols that were left there in blood by the previous subject. Desmond is subject 17. The previous subject is subject 16. His name is Clay. We'll come back to him in a later game. But anyway, I have a lot of notes. So, credits. Few game details. This series actually wasn't meant to exist. There's an alternate universe where this game is the next Prince of Persia game. So, after the Sands of Time had come out, the team began development on the next game, but next-gen consoles had higher capabilities, so they wanted to do something different with the game. They at first wanted a character striving to be a king, and Prince of Persia : Assassin was born. Birds of prey became the motif, and they chose Altair because in Arabic it means bird of prey. At least that's what they said. I have not Googled it. If that is wrong, shame on them for saying that. Anyway, yeah. Eagles, leaping of faith, short robes, hay bales to hide in. They all just kind of fell in all the features of modern, I shouldn't say modern day Assassin's Creed games, but I'm going to say it. The features of all modern day Assassin's Creed games that they should have, that all of those things sort of followed suit. Ubisoft Montreal became Assassin's Creed's primary team. The director of Prince of Persia did work on the next one, which was The Warrior Within, that came out in November of 2004. But he'd go on to do the next two Assassin's Creed games. Oh, and it shows. Not in a bad way. Assassin's Creed came out in 2007. It takes 15 hours to do the main quest and 30.5 hours to do the whole game. Let me stay focused. Desmond is the child of assassins. He ran away at 16 and quickly wished he hadn't once the Templars kidnapped him. Altair is clearly the fun part, because Desmond's sections are just more or less... If it was a game that was made now, they'd be pre-render, but I don't know if pre-render wasn't a thing yet or not. I don't know that much about game development history. If it wasn't a thing yet, then I guess it explains why it looked the way it did. But oh my god, was it annoying. Having Altair be knocked down from master to novice is a clever way to have your player have to learn all of these skills again, because there's an actual reason why Altair doesn't have them. Like he has them, but he doesn't. A very important note. If you do not start with the first Assassin's Creed game, do not go back to play it. Watch someone do a playthrough because you will never finish this game. They did not know how well this game series is going to take off, and therefore, the playing is very robotic. And my sister said that it's just because some things were not standard in game development yet, but other games that came out around the same time feel a lot more fluid than this game. Even Ubisoft's other games that came out in the same year feel more fluid than this game. But I guess it's just due to the genre. I don't know. Upon first playthrough in '07, like I said in the intro, I stopped playing it, finished 2, and then came back to 3, not 3, came back to 1, and forgot that Altair can't swim. In game, the reason that they give for Altair not being able to swim is that there's a glitch in the Animus, and Altair could in fact swim. I don't know. Um, yeah. No subtitles and no skipping the scenes either, so that's boring. In the modern era, there's world building, and when my boyfriend was playing the game, he looked at the world building, but every single time I have played this game, I cannot be bothered. Um, yeah, Desmond also can't run, which is really annoying. Over the game, Altair can intimidate, eavesdrop, steal, and assist in order to find targets. It gets boring really fast. The guard detection is absolute garbage. If they see you for too long, they will follow you, and then they will attack you. There's no money. In order to get throwing knives back, you have to go all the way back to Masyaf. And yes, there's fast travel, but only at certain points and only when you leave the city. Man. um, there are things that become series standards, like collectibles in this game. Those are the flags. There are radiant quests, which in this game are the Templar Knights, an eagle vision with blue as allies, red as enemies, and targets that you need to assassinate are gold. Also, the collectibles will glow white. They also make like a little tinkling noise. And then hay bales and places for you to hide will also glow white. This game's mapping system is also kind of crappy because even there's free play after the game was over was not standard yet either, so that wasn't a thing. So you had to collect all of these things in the city as you are going around trying to kill all of your targets, and if you don't get to all of them, I guess you're stuck. But as you're doing them, no map no map marker shows up to show you where the thing is. I'm not even sure if you can click on things to make them like targets because you don't have a compass, you just have a map. Do you? I actually don't remember. It's been a long time since I played that first one. I have not gone back to replay that first one. Not since I did this. um, yeah, blending also is used. This is the only game where it actually makes sense, as you can only blend in with the monks who are wearing all white, and Altair is wearing all white. It gets a little bit ridiculous in the later games when Ezio has on like this ornate shoulder piece and a cape, and he's able to blend in with just normal people. It gets a little bit silly. Um, Eagle vision is also a sign of Isu DNA. I promise I'll explain the Isu later. I'm just too angry to explain it right now because of what it turns into. Um, yeah. Also, they don't really acknowledge it as like a skill yet in this game. In the second game, they actually acknowledge the fact that Eagle Vision is a skill that that your player character has, and it makes them special. Killing civilians will cause you to desynchronize, and also going outside of the mission area will cause you to desynchronize. The assassin screen, which when you assassinate your target, in most of the games, you will go into this white area where you can like talk to your target. That's not actually happening in like in story. That is, it is my belief that that is solely for the player. Nearly every single Assassin's Creed game has that screen. In 3 games that I can think of, it's not white, but every other game except one has that screen. Yeah. I didn't think I would have to talk about that because it's such a minute little detail, but given Odyssey and Valhalla, I have to talk about it. It has to be mentioned. So, yeah. You can act when the screen, I don't know what else to call it besides screen tearing. When the screen gets all like weird, you can press a button and it'll change the perspective a bit, which I thought was neat. Um, Yeah, the area looks like the Animus loading screen. That's the best way. I call it the assassination screen because it only happens when you assassinate a target. Um, at least it should. I enjoy this story. Arrogant characters getting humbled is one of my favorite things, and Malik forgiving Altair is the best. As is Altair not killing Maria because she's not his target. And yeah, I wouldn't like this game without revelations, honestly, but we'll get there. And no breaking armor, the viewpoints are nice, and the map isn't too busy. None of the collectibles are marked, like I said, which is annoying, but it's fine. I like the fact that there's regenerative health in this game. I enjoy the bleeding effect that Desmond is struggling with. On my last playthrough, I only died once. Every time I play these games, I always get better at them. Um, all of my gripes and dislikes are a product of 2007, or this game being a first. The series is deeply loved, and despite its reputation, people like this game. Uh, that being said, Eagle Vision stops when you move, and I didn't like that. And you desync if you lose a target. The counter is terrible. Every finished sequence will pull you out of the Animus, which is the fun part of the game. Yeah, but I like this game. I will overlook less than stellar gameplay for a good story, and that goes for any game, not just for Assassin's Creed. The opposite is never true. Great gameplay will never save a terrible story. Um, I watched the trailer, and I don't know what I would have thought as a person in 2007, because like you're expecting a next Prince of Persia game, and the Prince of Persia did come out, but then like 3 years later, there's this thing, and I feel like I would have been hyped. I know that Prince of Persia is deeply beloved, so I actually don't know if there was another one in between because they're different teams at this point. I don't know. Um, if you play this game and like start here with the story, remember that this game came out in 2007. Rise of a Ninja, the Naruto game, came out a month previous to this. It was a weird time for Ubisoft. The game is stiff and clumsy compared to now, but it's a solid 2007 game. I personally think it deserves a remake. I'm wary due to lore compliance now, but I think the game deserves a remake, like in the new engine with new graphics, and you don't necessarily have to change the story, but like update the game a little bit. I think. You know, the white one showed up really well, but this red one kind of just looks like I took a knife to my face. Ugh, I don't like that. Assassin's Creed 2 is next, and I titled this section Into the All Star. And the reason I have done that is because everyone, including the developers, stays on Ezio Auditore's dick. They really do. People love this game and the next two games, which I'm also just going to do because it will probably be, with the exception of maybe that, it will be the exact same makeup. Um, Although maybe I'll also change my eyes as well because that game has a little bit different aesthetic for Ezio. I am going off of the main character in case you can't tell. Yeah. My favorite thing also about these particular games is like you'll notice that I've stopped at Black Flag. My favorite thing about these particular sets of games is that the story always picks up where the last one left off. The last thing you see in the first game is those symbols and like on blood, and Desmond's like, what is that? And then the next game opens and you're doing the like you're at those symbols, like that's what he's looking at. And then Lucy has you get into the Animus, and in the last game you ended with not Juno, Minerva. You ended speaking to Minerva, and in this game, no, sorry, that's two to Brotherhood. uh you ended with, how did the first game end? These ones are a little bit different, sorry, that was two to Brotherhood that I just described. But at the end of this game, at the end of the first game with Altair, you leave off with that. This game doesn't have that transition. I think actually it's the two to Brotherhood is the only one that has that transition. So you are playing as Ezio Auditore rather than Altair. The way it has been explained to me, because I know I'm aware of the shipping community for these games. The way it has been explained to me is that Altair comes from Desmond's paternal side and Ezio comes from Desmond's maternal side. So it's not supposed to be creepy, even if it comes off as creepy. I just wanted to put that out there. It looks like I just gashed my cheek. Like that. Oh my god. Anyway, um, but oh yeah, you're escaping from Sturgo now with Desmond. Like some some measure of exciting stuff happens with Desmond in this one. It's not as exciting as three. Three was the high point of the real world stuff, honestly, and then everything else was just kind of downhill. Both sides is downhill on both sides. The high point is three, anyway, with the real world stuff. Um, yeah. So Desmond, with the help of Lucy, escapes Abstergo and joins up with fellow assassins Rebecca and Sean. Rebecca does animist things, and Sean is a historian. Yes, he is an asshole, but trust and believe you will get used to Sean. He actually becomes pretty sympathetic, especially after Desmond dies, but we'll get there. Um, yeah, so you're reliving the memories of Ezio Auditore da Firenze because something is going to happen in some year at some place, and they want to know what it is before it happens. Not very descriptive, but they're going to use the bleeding effect to help Desmond learn how to be an assassin in a matter of months as opposed to a couple of years. Was that a good idea? Probably not, but Ezio Auditore's story is one of revenge. His brothers and his father were killed due to, I believe that man's name is Umberto, due to betrayal by someone that they believe to be their friend, and it set Ezio on a path to become an assassin. Ezio wants to avenge his family, and also he's the conduit for Desmond. Ezio learned very early that his life was not being lived for himself, which is depressing when you think about it, but we decide Ubisoft quickly decided to drop the whole philosophical ideals with these games, which was the most interesting thing about them in my opinion. So whatever though. I should stay focused. The game is quite different from the first one, and that's to be expected because the first one did really well, and then they were able to overhaul the game in a sense. It came out in 2009. The story takes 19 hours to complete, and 100% takes 35 hours to complete. Development began right after the first one. There were many secrets and the few teasers. There's also a mini series on YouTube called Assassin's Creed Lineage that shows the events directly preceding this game. Ezio's dad was an assassin, and I get the impression that Federico, his older brother, I also get the impression that he was an assassin, and it seemed like he had started their training because Ezio and his brother already knew how to do parkour. They could already climb. He just never told them, and it resulted in their deaths and Ezio being very confused and his uncle Mario having to continue his training or start it. I guess it seems like he never even began it. I have a lot of ire for Ezio's father because all of this game is his fault. But yeah, uh, this game is deeply beloved, with its two sequels becoming the Ezio Collection, which is now available on Switch. Um, I'm not rebuying this series. Not again. I can't. Not again. Not unless they fix everything that was terrible about Unity. I'm after Mirage. If Mirage isn't good, man. But we'll get there because I have to talk about that too. The parkour is smoother and the game is a lot more colorful and vibrant. You can high jump. There are vastly more weapons. There's smoke bombs. There's currency. There's different armors. There's horses. Well, the horses have wider use. I mean, there's actually like a whole like sequence where you have to use a horse in order to escape from some people. It also happens in the third one, in the third Ezio Auditore collection. Yeah. Um, there's fast travel. There's still fast travel, city to city and not within the cities, which is a little bit annoying. They have fast travel points on the outskirts of each city, except for the villa. It's better, but it's annoying. Um, there's a gun, there are health potions. All of the armor is breakable except for Altair's armor. Eagle Vision will also now move with you, which I thought was that was the best improvement in my opinion. Um, there are helper factions. There's the prostitutes, which will distract, and you can also blend with them. There's thieves, who will distract but also lead guards away from an area. And there's also the mercenaries for fighting. Um, and also, so we could get Bartolomeo. I love Bartolomeo. He's my favorite character in the whole game. He's great. There are rowboats as well, but every time I tried to climb on them, like I would keep falling off of them, and then I had to like stop and then climb up onto them. There are cutscenes, which I think if Black Flag and 3 or anything to go off on the Switch, you might be able to skip those, if you want to. There's a weapon wheel. The Brotherhood is also more filled out in terms of the people that you get to talk to. It's not just two individuals now. Um, Two game standards are also established here: the restricted zones and the somewhat buildable home base. The restricted zones have enemies everywhere, and you are automatically notorious in a restricted area. They are red on the map, and generally you're not going to want to go in there unless it's for like a mission or you're looking for something specific. There are some missions where that will take place only in restricted zones until you have to run away. You also don't have to run away in all of these missions because sometimes you assassinate the target and then a cutscene starts, so you don't automatically have to escape, which I thought was very helpful. It makes the game less repetitive because there are some where you have to do it still. Uh, yeah, most of your targets are going to be in restricted zones. The Villa de Auditore is a buildable. Like, it's already there, but it needs money so that you can rebuild it and make it look better. If you don't do it, you're probably going to be a little bit confused by the setting in the second one, because in Brotherhood it assumes that you have built it up all the way and also that you got Altair's armor. Um yeah, the villa will also occasionally give you money. Like if you buy paintings, if you buy armor, then the villa can give you more money, but after a while the chest fills up and you need to go get the money from there. You can also fill it up by getting all the feathers, and if you get all the feathers, you will get the cape, the Auditore cape, which I don't know, for anything more than sentimental value, I don't know why you would want that cape, because that cape just makes the game hard mode, because the auditores aren't supposed to exist anymore. So wearing the cape draws immediate attention from Templars, which is what all the guards are. It's assumed that all of the guards are Templars because they're being paid by the Templars. Um, yeah, so it just puts the game in hard mode. Yeah. There are assassin seals as well in order to unlock different assassin areas. One of them, Amunet. Hold on to that name, Amunet, and also Darius, because we will come back to them. And Amunet doesn't irritate me as much as Darius does, but I'll explain it when I explain it. I have a lot of likes, so I'll do what I don't like first. Leonardo's flying machine is the worst mission in the game. I would fall off of it and I would crash into things. The last time I played, I finally got the achievement where you have to kick like 5 people while you're using the flying machine. That thing sucked, and there's an Easter egg for it in the third game, and I hated it. Um, the notoriety system sucks, and yeah, it was. Hang on, the notoriety system sucks, and it's stuck around for way too long. In terms of like when I say that, I mean in terms of like these games as a whole, the notoriety system persisted all the way up to 4, and it was the actually I don't think it did in 4, at least not on the Switch version. They must have gotten rid of it. They also got rid of it in 3, but I know that there was a notoriety system in 3 because there's a whole training sequence. As part of the tutorial teaches you how to avoid the notoriety system. But I noticed that on Switch I didn't have to deal with it as much. Um, there's a lot of stuff on the Switch ports of those games that they changed, which was just for the better, honestly. I would fall off of the treasure boats a lot, which was annoying. The game has brute enemies, which have no counter. That was ridiculous. I wish I could travel to the mansion in the city rather than fast traveling to that little point outside of the city. Um, Mostly because I just sometimes all I needed to do was just go to the city and then leave. Yeah. Also, while I'm talking about the city, I know this is not for this game, but I just want to mention it. So in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, the villa gets attacked, and honestly, the fact that that was the first time the villa had been attacked is ridiculous because the assassin symbol is on the side of the villa. You want to talk about the lack of subtlety, my guy? Stealing in this game is also stupid. Stealing also persists through these games for no reason. By the time you hit Odyssey, it's not really even a necessary skill anymore. Uh, Now what do I like? I like a lot of things. I like Ezio's story. In Breath of the Wild, Zelda asked Link if he had a choice, would he have chosen to be a knight? And that's kind of essentially what Ezio's story is. If he had the choice to choose something else, would he have? Because this is essentially his family business, even if he didn't know it at the time. And also, he was never given the chance to do anything else once his family was killed. And that's depressing, but it's the truth. Um, yeah, if you my favorite thing about this about Ezio in particular is that when you're playing the second one specifically, before you become an assassin, before all the betrayal and stuff starts to happen, if you go to Ezio's animus entry, it'll say something in there to the effect of he kind of disappeared after such and such a year. We don't know what happened to him because he became an assassin because the assassin's brotherhood has a disappearing effect. Yeah, I like that bit. It's immersive storytelling to me. Um, I also felt like because Ezio wasn't immersed in the life from being a child, I don't think he would have chosen to be an assassin. Yeah, I like the symbols left behind by Subject 16. I felt like those puzzles were. Some of them were frustrating, but a lot of them were really simple to do if you just had patience and took the time to do them. Um, the reason that those happen is because they used a hard drive from Abstergo's Animus, and 16 had in Subject 16, he had imprinted his mind, I guess, onto the on the hard drive because Subject 16 and Desmond are actually related way, 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 way back to Ezio through a bastard line of Ezio's because Ezio was a little bit of a whore. So, yeah. Um, yeah. The reason that the symbols were on the wall, this is how we find out about a lot of this stuff. The reason that the symbols were on the wall is because 16 was also in the Animus, but for way too long, and the bleeding effect was as such that he couldn't remember who he was versus his ancestors, and it caused him to slit his own throat and his wrist and draw in blood on the wall. And they tossed his body into a river and continued on, kidnapped Desmond. Yeah. Subject 16 was also an assassin. I'm pretty sure he was trying to infiltrate whatever and figure out what they were doing. Yeah, we'll come back to the bleeding effect. I like the feathers despite how hard they were to get and how annoying they could be. I am a storyteller, telling person through and through, so I like that the feathers are what brought his mom back from her basically comatose state. Um, I like that there are also collectible maps. And Bartolomeo is a delight. He leads the mercenaries, and he's in this game and Brotherhood, and he's just a delightful individual. He's vulgar, he yells, he's strong. I love Bartolomeo. Um, so I just want to mention this real quick because I said it was more built out. I unfortunately don't remember the names of any of the ladies who are assassins, but that's because a lot of them weren't. I don't think any of them actually were in the Brotherhood. But Bartolomeo, Machiavelli, and La Volpe, all three of them are also in Brotherhood, which is why I remember their names. They are assassins. Machiavelli, yes, that Machiavelli actually leads the assassin Brotherhood right now. So yeah. I beat this game before one and thus was super disoriented when I went back to play one. It's a pretty long game for the time, but it's fun. I watched the trailer, and while underexposed, the trailer is very hard to look at because you can't really see it. It's very fun, and I would have been hyped when that guard said the thing about Ezio's mom. I was just like, and I, oop! um, Hang on, real quick. Give me a second. Okay. Fun fact about this game as well. When you reach Venice, There is a character that you will meet named Maria. She's one of the thieves. That the character who's running the thieves also is not in this game. Is now that I think about it, I don't think La Volpe is in this game either. I have no idea. I just know that I don't remember, but I just know that Ezio recognizes him from the second game, I think. But there's a character that you will meet named Maria, and she is a thief. Maria was supposed to be Ezio's next love interest. Um, the lady who played Maria, she got into a car accident and she unfortunately passed away. They did not recast her character, and I appreciate that. I think that was a good decision, and they just decided to write her character out, which I think was probably the best decision. Because had they replaced her voice actress or something like that, it would have been. I feel like it would have been too weird. Um, I appreciate that because it was something where it was like he was flirting with her, so why wasn't she in the other game? And I googled it, and that was why. Given that I'm not going to change my makeup for Brotherhood because let's do Brotherhood now. So my boyfriend had me call this section Sequelitis Who, and I don't fully understand that reference, but that was what he said to call it. Um, so all that crap that I mentioned about ending the game with Minerva and then starting this game with Minerva, that's what happens at the beginning of this game. At the end of 2, Ezio is left off with Minerva, and at the beginning of Brotherhood, you are in that chamber with Minerva, escaping Rome with Mario. So yeah, that's fun. Um the real world stuff doesn't really begin like in the same area, but you are in the truck on your way to the Villa Auditore. How they got Desmond out of the country, I have no idea, but not super important in this one because don't worry, we'll talk about that. Um, yeah. Uh, Ezio has the Apple of Eden and he escapes Rome with his uncle Mario. And then the Borgias attack the villa because how are they not gonna know where they are? I'm sorry, that place is just so unsubtle, and I didn't notice it until later. But not only is it like the only place in the middle of nowhere, it's so big and obvious. I like that you get to be in the villa in the modern day and you get to like look around a little bit. Some all the doors are locked obviously, but I thought that was a nice touch. As Desmond also does his first eagle dive, which was cool. Ezio now has to liberate Rome from Borgia control. The Borgias are the Templars. Yes, they were a real family, and yes, you do assassinate real people in this game. But I think the way you get around it, like the way they've always gotten around it, is I don't think historically we know either who or how these people died, which is how Ubisoft gets around it. Anyway, sorry, give me a moment. Where are my other pens? There they are. My face paint. Anyway, uh they know that the modern day people, they know that the catastrophe is coming, but they don't know the date yet, and they believe that Ezio's life will guide them towards the date that they need. Uh they're looking for Ezio's Apple of Eden. And when they find it, Desmond is compelled to kill Lucy, and he also falls into a coma. He was compelled to kill Lucy by a lady named Juno. Juno is going to come up a lot right around until we hit Syndicate. And when I tell you that I couldn't care less, I actually think that's the wrong way to say that. I don't know. I hate Juno. Man. Um, Anyway, this game came out in 2010 and there's not a lot of change. People were expecting a different story, but it's just more of Ezio, which I didn't mind because it was like a continuation of Ezio and we got our answers. Because looking back on it, had they not done Brotherhood, maybe Revelations, but we'll talk about that later. Had they not done Brotherhood, it would have been kind of a stupid thing to either jump to Revelations or to jump to Connor because then we're just left with this massive blank check with Ezio. So while I think Ezio got way too much attention, I think this is what they should have done. This is the best way that they could have done this. Um, yeah, apparently there's multiplayer. I never noticed it. People like this one, but it's just essentially the same plot. Somebody in Ezio's family dies. He kills a bunch of Templars, went to get to the main Templar, and then he wins. The game is 41.5 hours in total, and the story mode is 15 hours. This game takes place only in Rome, so horses can be ridden around the city, and fast travel is done by the sewer system, which was the best thing that they ever did. Oh my god. Um, you can restore the city by buying shops. However, you can only buy those shops and monuments if you have liberated the area from the local Borgia Tower. So, the fort mechanic started in this game and just exists in some form throughout all the rest of them. It's pretty much the same in Revelations. Couldn't figure it out in 3. It's the same in Black Flag. Actually, I don't think Unity has one. Um, Syndicate has one. Syndicate is the best version of the fort mechanic, in my opinion. Uh, Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla all have a version of it that I did not like as much, but we'll get there. Some of that is video too, so we'll get there. Yeah. You can, yeah. Fort mechanic is also a staple now to varying degrees of success. You will kill, in this game in particular, you will kill a Borgia captain and then burn the tower. Sometimes, well, not burn the tower, like it's still there, but you'll like burn the canopy and the Borgia flags. Sometimes the captain will run from you if he hears you killing his other people. Um, Sometimes he's not. I don't think there's one where he's like only out during the day. Sometimes you have to chase him and catch him, and if you lose him, then the thing desynchronizes. No, it doesn't desynchronize. It tells you to come back later. Um, yeah. Items can be sold now. There's a gliding once you finish Leonardo's missions, which is much better than his flying machine. Instead of a central base where you can get your money, there are banks everywhere where you can get your money. And the same principle, though, buy paintings, different sets of armor, stuff like that. There's also the unbreakable armor, which I didn't like in this game very much. I thought it looked weird. A big part of this and the next 2 games is access to the Brotherhood. So, in the other 2 games, and actually now that I think about it, every game after 4, you don't have a whole lot of access to your brothers, which is shocking given what Unity's whole gimmick was. But in this game, you can call on the other assassins. You can find them as regular citizens throughout the city, and you can call on them to help you fight. This exists in 2 forms. If you, at least I'm an Xbox player, so if you hold the bumper, an arrow storm will happen if it's all the way full. If you press the bumper several times, then different assassins will come out and help you fight. They can be killed, which I discovered and was very upset about. You can change their outfits. You can change the color of their outfits. You can't change their weapons, but you can upgrade them to master level, which plays more of a role in Revelations and then is never seen again. And you can send them around Europe to do other missions in other cities. This aspect of the game confused me quite a bit because it felt like, take for instance Genoa. I think that's one of the cities. If I were to send assassins to that city constantly, over and over and over and over again, it felt like I could never capture the city. So after, like, every time I play the game, I try to do it a little bit more, but then I would just give up because I need the assassins while I'm playing the game and the mission. Some of the missions, those assassins will be unavailable to you, particularly if you're like underground or something like that, or you have to go somewhere else, like during Leonardo's missions. But they will continue to do the missions that you sent them on, even if you don't have access to them at the current moment. Yeah. I didn't fully appreciate that mechanic in terms of its ability to generate money for you until my 3rd playthrough. Yeah. There are less collectibles. There are only 10 feathers this time. Armor still breaks, but you can get it fixed. You can't. You can also change the armor's appearance without affecting its stats, which I thought was great. Later, not later. Desmond sees like like a bleeding effect apparition of Ezio, and he sees him wearing Altair's armor. At the beginning of the game, he lost it, but that shows that at some point later he must have gone back to get it. So I'm wearing Altair's armor because I think it's cool. Um, in the DLC, you can figure out what the setting for Assassin's Creed 3 is going to be. I've never played the DLC. I just watched someone do it, so I know that that's there. Also, they heavily imply that Leonardo da Vinci was gay, which, yeah. Um, in case you were wondering how uh, Sean and Co. knew where to go during Assassin's Creed Revelations. That's what they're doing. That's what the real world is doing in Assassin's Creed Revelations. While Desmond is inside the Animus, they are going to the setting of Assassin's Creed 3. Um, the game ends, and that's where they are. But yeah, um, yeah, I didn't play the DLC. I didn't want to. There are glyphs in this game, and you can meet 16, which I thought was fine. The puzzles weren't terrible, so you can do it if you want to. You don't have to do it. You will still meet 16 in the next game anyway, so it doesn't matter. Um, the most amazing mechanic by far is the optional. No, not amazing. The most annoying mechanic by far is the optional 100% completion. It exists all the way up through Syndicate. Now, for some people, normal people probably, you can just ignore these 100% completions because you don't have to do them because some of them are 100% optional. If it tells you that you can't be seen but you're seen, the level will not desync. You just won't get 100% completion. For me at 13, who was still deep within the midst of wanting to get all of the achievements in every game ever, this was terrible for me. As an adult, though, because Switch doesn't have achievements like that, the best thing ever. I can just look at them, ignore them. Sometimes I want to get them, though, because it's just like I got this far through the mission and you're really going to deny me this. But, man, although every time it was like, don't be seen, those ones were easy. I didn't struggle with those at all. Um, yeah, it wasn't great for my tiny child brain, honestly. I do more of them every time I play, but I don't know. I'm glad that Switch has no achievements because it helped my brain chemistry recognize that I don't need to get 100%. It was great. Some of them I just didn't know how to do, though. I didn't like the Unbreakable armor. I already said that. It was ugly. There are collectibles that cannot be reached outside of missions, and that's not exclusive to Assassin's Creed. I hate that in every game. If your collectibles cannot be reached outside of a mission, they shouldn't be there. Um, the overseas missions felt endless, but the gold also felt endless, so. Some of the glyphs were awful. Not all of them were as fun as the first one, but whatever. Um, I don't like that I don't get to kill Rodrigo, and technically I also don't get to kill Cesare, which was annoying. You just throw him off of a building. You also don't get to kill Lucrezia. That's part of the DLC where you like seduce her into telling you something about Leonardo or whatever, but also, I didn't mention this, but the Medici family is also in at least the second one. They get mentioned by Lucrezia in this one. And I saw a funny post, I think it was on Tumblr, that said, imagine, because the Medici family still exists. And they said, imagine having family members that were killed in Assassin's Creed. I thought that was funny. Um, yeah, there isn't a ton I dislike, but there's also not a ton that I like because it's just the same game as 2. I like that Claudia gets to join the Brotherhood. I enjoyed learning what happened to Christina, his first love. When you're playing Assassin's Creed 2, the girl that he visits, that's who they're talking about. You find out what happened to Christina through Broken Heart missions because he meets, not like meets, but the way that they explained it on the Wikipedia page. There's a woman in Rome who looks like Christina, and it reminds him of those memories, and then you get to play them, which I thought was nice. You play first meeting her, the night that your family was killed, when he visited her in Venice, and also when she unfortunately died. Um, that comes up again for like a second in Revelations where he just like mentions it. Also, I didn't mention him for 2, but there's a character in this named Duccio. Duccio is in all three of these games, and it's the funniest thing ever. He was supposed to be engaged to Claudia, but he was a womanizer, so Ezio goes and beats him up. And then in this game, I think he stole some art that Ezio has to get back, and he beats him up again. I thought it was nice. The fast traveling is very convenient. The city, Rome itself, is very pretty. Bartolomeo and Leonardo are lovely. Ooh, I just pulled this off of my pants and tassel. I didn't mean to do that. When Desmond falls into the coma, what do Sean and Rebecca do? Why, they put him in the Animus, of course. I don't think that was a good idea necessarily, but granted, I don't know how they would have fixed how he would have fixed his mind otherwise. Yeah. I watched the trailer for this game and it's good. It's not like the trailer for 1 or 2, which was nice, I guess. But it's just the same game. So, talk about Revelations next. Assassin's Creed Revelations. We're going back to the Middle East, just like we are at the beginning of next year, but I'll talk about that when I get to it. Um, I say that a lot, and I don't mean to keep saying that a lot. I just have a lot of emotions about this game series because since the world is really hard to deal with right now, I've been kind of hyperfixating on a lot of stuff. That looks white, it's supposed to be gray. I've been kind of hyperfixating on a lot of stuff lately, and I like media and media literacy, and I just when things are difficult, it is easier for me to focus on the things that do not matter at times when it is safe to do so, like right now and on this channel. So, Assassin's Creed Revelations, which my boyfriend had me call the GOAT, uh, was released in 2011. The trailer for the game is actually what you see when you start up the game. That sequence is where, after he chokes dude out, that's where gameplay starts. Um, yeah. But in the game, it's obviously got some narration from Ezio. Uh, as a story-driven person, I would have been hyped for this game, and I'm still hyped for this game for the return to Masyaf because now we actually get to finish Altair's story as well, which I thought was nice. This game though is kind of just brotherhood with old man Ezio. He's like 60 in this game. The main quest is 12.5 hours long, and 100% completion is 34.5 hours. And Montreal did this game. I never would have guessed. I wonder how Ubisoft divides up their teams because I feel like team Ubisoft Montreal is their A team, but it seems like at least maybe it's because I don't play other Ubisoft games, but it seems like they only have Assassin's Creed. I don't know. Um, that would make a lot of sense if it was just. I don't know anything about game development. We've already established this. Anyway, originally that this game was going to be called Assassin's Creed Lost Legacy, and it was going to be released on the 3DS, and you were going to discover the origins of the Brotherhood. Boy, am I pleased that they didn't end up doing that. It got canceled, and this is when they began their yearly nonsense. They wanted to release a game every single year, and I don't think I need to explain why. That's a terrible idea. Um, I don't know how to pronounce the name of the city, so I apologize if this is wrong. Annecy, Singapore, Bucharest, Massive, and Quebec helped develop this game. It has generally positive reviews, but less than the other two because, again, it's just more of Ezio. And also, this is a different story. They didn't even have to make this game kind of like how I feel like they did with Brotherhood. Like with Brotherhood, if they had skipped Brotherhood and gone straight to this game, it would have been like, wait, what? How did we get here? What about the Borgias? What are you talking about? They didn't need to make this game. Revelations very well could just not exist. But whatever, I suppose. Um, the shortcomings of this game are best summarized by one word: Hookblade. If you know, then you know. The story has 3 parts. So there's Desmond. Desmond is in the Animus because he is in a coma after having killed Lucy. He was put there by Juno, and now the Animus cannot tell his mind from Altair's and from Ezio's because he's been in the Animus too much. And he's in basically what is a safe mode because the Animus is trying to keep him, Altair, and Ezio separated in his mind. They're trying to keep him alive. But the Animus is not doing this actively, it's just doing it passively and holding them in the states that they are in. So Desmond has to do it physically. And in order to guide him on this little journey is Subject 16, Clay Kazmarak. The same thing happened to Clay, and he was able to sort out his mind, except his body is in the bottom of a river. So Clay couldn't escape. Yeah. Um Yeah, so Ezio is looking for Altair's lost library. There's only been whisperings about it, and he ends up at Masyaf in the beginning of the game. And not only does he find Templars, but also he finds a gigantic door in front of the library. So now he has to go find the keys, and the keys are in Constantinople or Istanbul. Uh, on Google, if you Google Istanbul, I'm pretty sure it'll come up with the city of Constantinople. I don't think it ever, in modern times, like out in the real world where we live, I don't think it ever says Istanbul, except when referring to it in a historical standpoint. Yusuf will explain that both names are correct. So the last required, oh yeah, there's required playing in this game. It's technically optional throughout the entire story, but you're gonna want to do it. There are memory discs that Altair left behind. Nicolo Polo and his son Marco took them to Istanbul and hid them around the city. Do not ask me why or how, I do not know. All I know is that Marco Polo visited Marco? Yeah, Marco Polo visited Asia, and Masyaf is in Asia. So it's in modern day Syria, if I'm not mistaken. At least according to like where it would be on the map. Yeah. Each key has an important memory of Altair's to finish off his story. The first one is just some siege on Masyaf. The second one is, hang on, I need to think because I don't want to get them mixed up. Kind of like the Animus is doing to Desmond's brain. The second one is right after you kill the mentor of the Brotherhood who's been corrupted by the apple and you burn his body. And then the third one is Maria and Altair are going to confront what's his face for having killed Malik and his youngest son. The fourth one is when Altair comes back to the Brotherhood and is able to take control again. And the last one is when he gives Nicolo Polo the discs. Yup. In terms of new mechanics, aside from the hook blade, which basically is a jump extender and kind of unnecessary, the fort mechanic gets an addendum. There is now a raid mechanic, and if your notoriety is too high, Templars will start attacking your towers. You can defend them, but it's an annoying mechanic. I just never got into the habit of letting my notoriety get too high. There are certain points where your notoriety will automatically be really high, but in those parts, either I did them too fast or it is not possible for your towers to be attacked because it is scripted for your notoriety to be too high. So, yeah. Don't get in the habit of letting your notoriety get high though, because it's annoying. Because then the shops around it will close, and you'll have to buy all of them again. They do not automatically reopen once you get the tower back. If you fail, you have to kill the captain again, which when in my first playthrough, when my notoriety was really high, just because I didn't care, I would just let the raid happen and I wouldn't go defend it, and then I would go kill the captain again because it was so much easier and a lot less time consuming. The Brotherhood is also better. The overseas missions, now you can take control of the city. And by the time I finished playing the game, I hadn't like completed all of the missions, but I think that's just because you have to dedicate a lot of time to the game, and after a while there's really nothing to do besides waiting around for these things to finish. So, um this game is also the first one with a crafting system, no matter how rudimentary it is, in that you can craft different types of bombs that do different types of things. Kill them, distract them, smokescreen. Those are generally the three things that you can do. Um, there isn't a lot I dislike about this game, again, because it is the same game. I didn't appreciate the bombs though until the third playthrough. That's when I actually like used them and got new achievements for the first time in like a decade. The notoriety is really the main thing that I dislike. I love going back to Masyaf. I already stated I love Altair and will overlook frustrating gameplay for a good story. There isn't a ton of assassinating, but I kind of like that. This game, I believe, is the shortest in the whole series, but I appreciate that. I adore Yusuf, and the first time I played this game, when Yusuf was killed, I screamed. Dude, I was so upset. Bro activated Spartan Rage. I was so upset. um, I liked learning about Desmond's deal as well. When you leave the Animus, because you technically never leave the Animus, but when you go to Animus Island, there are these pillars that you can unlock that have Desmond's memories in them. I liked learning Desmond's deal. I know there are a lot of people who don't like Desmond because they find him boring, but outside of the context of these games, he's a good character. I promise. You can also learn Clay's story in the DLC. I have not played it. I was not interested. It helped me care about Desmond. There's also another Easter egg for not Easter egg. There's also another cameo by Duccio. He tries to flirt with the lady that Ezio's falling in love with, and he calls Ezio the devil and runs off. And you can find Duccio later and punch him. And if you go through his pockets, he's got exactly 1 coin on him. I love Sophia, the lady that Ezio ends up falling in love with. I love her. The final scene in the game was excellent because I said there were 5 memory discs. There are actually 6 memory discs. When you go to Masyaf and you finally get to go to the area, you have a torch in your hand and you're walking down the hallway, and Ezio is lighting up each of the little torches as he walks, and he finds a skeleton sitting in a chair. That skeleton is of Altair, and then we see his. There are no books in the library, by the way. And then we see Altair's last memory. The castle is being sieged by the Mongols. I think that time period sounds correct. The castle is being sieged by enemies. So he sends all of the assassins away because to Altair, Masyaf is a symbol of assassinhood arrogance. So he's sending them away. He is going to stay in the castle, and he's going to lock the library with himself in it. And his son is like, I don't understand. Why have a library if there are no books in it? And Altair tells him to go be with his family and to go be happy and to live. And his son realizes that it's a tomb. And then Altair walks down the hallway and puts out all of the lights that you just lit up in 16th century, I believe, 17th, whatever. He puts out all of the lights that you as Ezio just lit up. And then he puts his apple down on a pedestal, and then he sits in the chair holding the memory disc. And it spins around him, and when it comes back around, it's Ezio sitting in front of his skeleton. And I love that sequence. It is the most fantastic sequence in this entire game, including the new ones, including Origins. It is the most fantastic sequence in this whole game. I have played every single one of these AAA games. I can say that. It is the best sequence. And then Ezio sees Altair's apple and is like, I'm not doing that shit again. And time freezes for a second, and he starts talking to Desmond because Ezio knew probably from the first time he met Minerva that he wasn't living his life for himself, which is depressing, but it's the truth. Um, I also like that with the overseas missions, the cities that you capture, those can also be rated. There's nothing that necessarily affects those except for time, but those can also be rated. But you can fight to get them back. I appreciate that. Yeah. I love this game. This is my favorite game in the whole series. This is my favorite game. Followed closely by Origins, but this is my favorite game. And like when I say closely, I don't even mean closely. Like if Revelations is here, Origins is here. There's a lot of space. I love storytelling. I love this game. It is a fantastic game. That actually ends the Ezio collection, by the way. In case anybody was curious and you wanted to know what happened to Ezio afterwards, because there is no game for it. After this, we go to Connor. Uh, Ezio lives in Florence, on the outskirts of Florence, with Sophia and his daughter. A Chinese assassin comes to him for help, and he doesn't want to help her, but he ends up helping her because he can't say no to this life. And he goes to Florence with his wife one last time. She says that he should have stayed home. He says, I am home, and he has a heart attack on a bench, and that's how he dies. Um, yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, I think there are only three assassins where we definitively know how they died. Yeah, because Altair dies in his library, Ezio dies in Florence, and Edward is killed by a Templar. I don't think we know how any of the rest of them die. Like, we've seen the remains of Bayek, Aya, and Eivor, but I don't think we know how any of them die. Well, technically, there's a fourth main character that we know how they die, but I don't want to talk about it because I swear to God that part of the game makes no sense. And also, I'm just going to say this now. Let the record show that my least favorite of all of these games is Odyssey. So I've been using face paint this whole time to put the assassin symbol on my face. And I've got these face paint pens because I am not good with a brush and the blue does not want to work. So here we are. This is blue though, so that's nice, I guess. Annoying is what it is. But whatever, I suppose. Um Assassin's Creed 3. Haha. So I call this one the comeback kid because I've noticed in recent years that more people are starting to give Connor a chance, and I appreciate that because for a long time this was my favorite game because I hadn't played Revelations in a while, and I just played 3, and I like this game. I think Connor gets a lot of justified hate, but I also think he gets a lot of unjustified hate. So anyway, um, dang, there's another game where I'm gonna want to use the blue. I'll figure it out. This game came out in 2012 because, of course, it did. And what's it about? Well, the end of the world, of course. And Ubisoft capitalized on that end of the world thing in 2012 because the Mayan calendar ended there. And what a weird time to just like be alive and experience the world because more or less what ended up happening was we for a couple of months we all just thought that the world was going to end on like what was it like December 27th or something like that. It was the weirdest thing. um I think I was in middle school, but Desmond, awoken from his coma, having straightened out his brain and in possession of the apple of Eden, must stop the end of the world. So they go to the US. How they got a man who was currently in a coma on a plane, the world's never gonna know, but they have to stop the sun from roasting the planet. This is the game where a lot of the magic mumbo jumbo starts to become front and center, because before it was just kind of like there in the background. Now it is part of the main plot, as it were. um so I haven't explained yet, but these gold people you have encountered every so often are those who came before, or if you're playing the later games, they're called the Isu. They created the artifacts, the apple, the staff, the shawl, not shawl, I can't remember what it's called. The shroud, the apple, the staff, the shroud, the sword. They created all of these things. And the apples were specifically created in an effort to prevent the sun from destroying the planet. There are many, many, many apples, and what they were meant to do is they were supposed to, like, control the minds of people to get them to think hard enough that it would create a shield so that the sun wouldn't destroy the planet. Saying that out loud is the most ridiculous thing in the world. They failed, and those who came before died, but humanity went on. This time, the modern era needs a key to unlock the temple. So, in order to find this key, they start off playing as Hatham Kenway, but then they end up playing as Connor Kenway, his kid. Or if you're feeling particularly spicy, I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Raton Hagedon. Yeah, don't ask me how to spell that. Um, Hatham is the Grandmaster of the Templars, and Connor becomes an assassin. So he also wants to protect his people from death because he's half Native American, and it's taking place during the Revolutionary War. And despite himself, he ensures their destruction, but sets back the Templars by killing all of them, including his own father. Hatham didn't raise Connor, so like it's emotional, but not that emotional. The game takes 54.5 hours to do 100% completion and 16 hours for the main quest. There's a lot of extra stuff in this. Montreal did this game. Details of it were already coming out by the time the second game had started. This is the first game we had in 3 years that was a different story. And there were rumors of a female assassin, but its setting wasn't a strong match, is what they said. I'm not even going to get into that. This game makes it clear that we don't want Desmond anymore. People have been complaining about Desmond since the very start. They felt like he was boring. They felt like, and they're not entirely wrong, the parts where you get pulled out of the Matrix, as it were, those are the most boring parts of the game. This game let's this game essentially gives him the I'm gonna die backstory scene that you get in The Walking Dead when a side character is going to die, because you get to do more stuff as him, and then at the end of the game he dies. Um, yeah. So they introduced his dad and actually let us play as him. Apparently, I read this on the some of the information I was googling. Red Dead Redemption released in the middle of development, and the two games feel similar. People really dislike this game, but it's getting better. I've never played Red Dead Redemption. I've thought about it, but I don't know anything about that series. Um, yeah. Desmond gets to use the apple in this game, and we get to kill Abstergo employees, and we also get to kill the dude that kidnapped him. Um, but in the course of protecting the planet, we end up releasing Juno. This is where the Isu craft gets really, really dumb. This is where it started. Like, there isn't a lot added for mechanics. The shops are scaled way down. Like, I don't even think I went to the shops really. The crafting system is more refined. The homestead part of it continues to elude me. There's like crops that you can send away, and I think it's supposed to give you money. I've played this game 4 times, and it still escapes me. I gave up trying. Um, yeah. There's a hunting mechanic that I didn't do very much with on my first playthrough with. All of the armor is gone. It's just clothes, so there's no more breaking armor. Um, there's very stiff sea farming section, but only 2 missions are mandatory, which is great. The Brotherhood aspect is pretty lost. You can still summon them, but there's not as many as there used to be. Um, I forgot that they were even there for most of the game. The main collectible is the almanac pages, which you have to chase now, which got pretty annoying on my first playthrough, but on my second playthrough, it got easier. Lockpicking is also available, but it sucked, so in the Switch edition, they got rid of it, which was great. Um, the only other game they used it in was Unity, and it was different in Unity. This is also the first game to use regenerative health since the first one, and there's also no notoriety system. I thought there was a notoriety system on the Xbox version, but I don't have my Xbox version anymore. I've only got my version on the Switch. Um, I don't enjoy the ship parts. I did all of the side quests, and it's very clumsy. Um, all of the timed missions sucked. Every part that was directly related to the revolution, except the T, also sucked. Everything before Assassin Connor, didn't like it. The revelation that Hatham was a Templar was cool the first time, but playing it the second time, it's kind of like, oh, yeah. Um, I don't know. So in this game, there is DLC. It is called The Tyranny of King Washington. It is a one fantastic concept. I don't know what the hell they did while they were making this game on the Switch, while they were porting it, that messed up the controls so badly. But the controls for that are really stupid. Also, making them episodes rather than just the whatever, stupid. Um, yeah, it was what would happen if George Washington got a hold of an apple of Eden. Frankly, I feel like it is vastly inaccurate to what would happen, but that's why this is a video game. And the first part ended up glitching so bad that I had to restart it. I couldn't figure out what they wanted me to do in the second part to not be seen, and then I didn't even play the third part. I YouTubed it. And also in the DLC, a Native American man using animal spirits to do things. Not great. Not great. It's already not great that they have a Native American man helping, like helping a lot with the revolution, but yeah. um Legit magic also has never occurred in this series, and I guess you could say that that was the apple creating the illusion, but still, whatever. It was always under the guise of Isu science that we don't understand, but this is like legit magic. The Desmond parts are fun, but they lacked mission markers, so I got lost a few times. Juno. I hate Juno so much. I don't know what she wants. She wants to find her husband. Okay, what do I have to do with that? Why is she in the rest of all of these games? How is she finding her husband? One of the things that I never understood about the Isu is if they were really dead or not, because it seemed like they were supposed to just be like messages left behind, but they don't act like they're messages left behind. They act like people. I hate, we'll talk about Juno more as this goes on. I hate Juno. Now then, I like Connor more than most people do. Ezio is the gold standard, and a lot of people view those games as near perfect. I am outside that camp. They're good, but they're not. But don't overshadow the rest of the series. Like they truly don't. I enjoy Hatham and Connor working as a team until the end. In the DLC, Hatham stayed with Zio, but he died at a later time. The people on the homestead brought life to some of the side characters. They were fantastic. And you got to do missions with them, and like there's a funny glitch actually where if you don't do the homestead missions in the correct order as they appear every time you go back to the homestead, then there's a glitch where Connor cuts his hair at the end of the game, but he has his hood down in those scenes, but he's supposed to have hair, so it glitches the hood. It was weird. Um, I felt like I like the recruitment bits. I adore Achilles, and I refuse to play Rogue because of it. Because I'm not about to watch this man's whole life fall around his feet. The red coats will attack you or find you suspicious on sight, but the blue coats won't bother you unless you cause an issue, which I thought was great. Um, I can also interact with the animals. Like I can pet the cows, I can pet the cats, I can give feed to the chickens. There's also there's also a really cute thing that you can do where you can make, I don't know how to do it. I looked it up one time though. You can get one of the chickens on the homestead to wear an assassin hood. It's really cute. Um Trying to make sure I got everything in this game first because it seems like somehow I didn't write everything down, but I don't know. Um the father son parallels between Connor and Hatham and Desmond and William are really great. Sean comes a long way at the end of this game. I think I get where he was coming from because this random guy who didn't even want to be an assassin and actively ran away from it showed up, and now suddenly he's the most important specialist person in the world. I get where he's coming from. Um, yeah, all these games are really good at making the player feel like a badass, especially when you consider the optional objectives. It's not easy to follow Ezio. Connor never stood a chance. Because people love Ezio so much and like they immediately loved him, Connor never stood a chance. I feel like Edward probably would have fared better, but Connor gave Edward the buffer he needed in order to be great. Because I don't think people, except for like the water mechanics in that game, I don't think people would have liked 4 as much had Connor not been that buffer between Ezio, the gold standard, and another really fantastic game. There's also cut content in this game that a lot of people have watched that made them feel better about Connor because the problem with Connor is that he remains naive till like the end of the game, and even after it, yes, there's hope for peace, but he is like he's painfully naive. It's really annoying. It's really bad. Um he basically tell like says to his father that like perhaps he's correct about life and how it's kind of hard to hope for peace and peace is going to end up being impossible and it'll never happen, but also he's got some of his mother in him and that he will never stop hoping for peace and never stop trying to achieve peace. There's actually a part at the very end of the game where he looks like the revolution's over, America's a country now, and he looks over at the slaves and he's like, I mean, is this freedom? Which I thought was nice. Um, yeah, A lot of the comments on that video are like, why did they cut this content? This would have helped me like Connor a lot. Yeah, I watched the trailer for it. Um, it was a fun trailer. I thought it was good. It was fun to watch. Um, Before I sign off to fix my makeup for Assassin's Creed 4, which I'm not, probably black. I'm gonna talk about Assassin's Creed Liberation, which is the game that has Aveline in it, Aveline de Grand Prix. I like this game. Whenever I play games where there are black characters, it is always very important to me that the hair on the black model looks good, and I think hers looks really good. This game is not popular, but I played it, so I'm going to talk about it. It's actually a game within a game. If you when you play the fourth one, they'll talk about this game when you first get to Abstergo. Uh, they made this game, so there's a lot of making it seem like Aveline is either a worse person than she is or was, or that she became a Templar like at the end of the game. But then it'll glitch, and you'll be able to find out what the truth is because they're actively trying to hide it from you. This came out in 2012 as well, and it's the first game that has a female protagonist. For Abstergo, it's more when you play the fourth game, it'll make more sense. Altair, Ezio, and Connor were deemed unsatisfactory for a game of their own, so they went with Aveline. She's a half French, half black assassin, and she lived in New Orleans pre Louisiana Purchase. She was raised by her stepmother and her father. Her mother, she finds her in Mexico, I want to say. A lot of slaves ran away to Mexico, so that tracks. She wasn't a slave, but she was black in New Orleans, so near the Americas. I don't know how prevalent slave catchers were before the revolution, but it wouldn't shock me. Um, yeah, her stepmother is actually the Grand Master of the Templars. Uh, yeah, there's a whip in this game, which I like. The shipping with Connor and is out of control. You get to meet Connor in this game as playing as Aveline. You don't get to play as him, but she's still awesome in her own right. So that was fun. People also shipped them in a polycule relationship with Arno, which I think is slightly creepy because I don't think Arno would have been old enough by the time these two were adults. So it is creepy, but whatever, I guess. Um I like that Aveline kills her master like Altair did. And I also enjoy that her parent was the Grand Master like Connor's was. Uh, there's a lot of when I get to the conclusion of this, there's going to be a lot about uh, family because that's pretty much what these games are actually about. And it kind of becomes the main focus towards the end there, and it gets a tiny bit silly. But she's also got disguises, which I think is a thing that should be implemented in more of these games because she's got her assassin outfit, which has the highest notoriety. She's got a slave outfit, which has the lowest notoriety. And she's got like an upper class lady outfit, which you can't fight in that outfit, but it also has no notoriety. And each one has their uses. I understand that implementing that in one of the mainstream games might be difficult, but it makes sense. Ezio does it a couple of times. He does it in Brotherhood and he does it in Revelations. And Connor also does it in the third game. It should be implemented more. Yeah. Um, the outfit with the least notoriety where you could fight is my favorite one. That does happen to be her slave disguise, which feels weird to say, but running around in the assassin outfit is just playing the game on hard mode. Um, I love Aveline. She has a French accent and is the only French assassin with a French accent, so that's a thing. Um, I don't actually know why. I'll get to that. But she's that. So actually, she's one of two assassins who, in their own game, had the correct accent. Connor is played by a Native American man. Ezio sounds Italian. I have no idea if his actor is Italian. The first voice actor for Altair is just some dude, and then they retconned his voice in Revelations. But after that, up to this point for Liberation, the only one with the accurate accent. Um, yeah. She gets to free slaves as well, which I thought was nice. So does Adewale, but I'll talk about why. I already talked about why I can't play that game because something about the port. Um, yeah. I like these two games. I like Connor more than most people do. I just was talking about God of War with my boyfriend, and there's no possible way I can't mention it when I talk about Valhalla later. I just, I have a lot, like, I already have a lot to say for Valhalla. I have even more to say now, having played both Assassin's Creed games. And, like, the 20 God of War 2018 came out that year, and Valhalla came out at the beginning of the pandemic, and I just so Assassin's Creed 4. This section has been titled "The End of an Era" because this is the last of the classic Assassin's Creed games, and you may say to yourself, uh, "Hey, isn't Assassin's Creed Syndicate and Unity, don't those also play the same way that this one does?" And you'd be right. That is a fair assumption to make when you say that. But there's something missing from those two games that Valhalla, not Valhalla, that Black Flag has that Unity and Syndicate just don't. So, but we'll talk about it when we talk about it. This is the last game I will discuss in this video. Black Flag came out in 2013. This game had the unfortunate effect of making people dislike Connor even more. But this game is excellent. The main quest takes 22.5 hours, and for 100%, it takes 66 hours. Um, I can agree with that assessment. The only thing that I have never been able to do in any of my playthroughs is the four legendary ships at the end, like that you can locate when you clear up the entire map. So if anybody has any suggestions, I am happy to hear them because I don't know what to do. I've upgraded my ship as much as you can without buying into the Ubisoft Club because I don't want to. I don't know what to do. Um Yeah. Montreal did this game mainly with help from Annecy, Singapore, Bucharest, Kiev, I believe that's supposed to say. I wrote it in cursive. Milan, Montpellier, and Sofia. It was suggested that this game be a spin-off of 3 like 2 and Brotherhood were, like with 2 Brotherhood and Revelations, and it kind of is because you play as Edward Kenway, who is Connor's grandfather and Hatham's father. This game was refreshing for a lot of people. It's a lot of people's second favorite behind some game with Ezio in it. Um, Everything from that they introduced in 3 was made better. Um, I can see my panda in the reflection of my glasses, and I kind of hate it. But yeah, the water effects are beautiful. Like that's the most stark difference I think with this game is that the water in Assassin's Creed 4 is gorgeous. Like it's absolutely beautiful, but I think that's because it's in the Caribbean. And if I'm not mistaken, if you go to the Caribbean, you can just like if you're in shallow enough water, you can just like see to the bottom of the river and it's like completely clear. It's the most beautiful and the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Um but yeah, Sean and Rebecca are in this game. You, the player character, are a faceless employee of Abstergo. You do recon for Sean and Rebecca, which you hack computers when you give them different levels of clearance, and you bring the information to them. You can Abstergo has figured out how to let people relive other people's memories. So like you're not Desmond anymore. You're not even related to Desmond. You are just a person who is reliving not Connor, Edward's memories in pursuit of a video game. At least that's what they tell you. Yeah. Edward Kenway, the Templars through Edward Kenway are looking for the temple. And in this temple, you can see where anyone in the world is as long as you have a sample of their blood. Terrifying in the hands of the Templars, although not so terrifying later once it becomes clear that the Templars have no idea what they're doing. Um, Edward Kenway was once a pirate during the golden age of pirates. Tired of being taken advantage of as a privateer, he decided to go off on his own and become a pirate and try to make his own way. And he promised his wife that he would come back with enough money to support all of them. When he left, he was unaware that she was pregnant. And he stopped writing, and then she died. And it's really sad. After getting mixed up with the Templars and Assassins and several traumatic deaths later, Edward gets humbled and he joins the Brotherhood. He wants to regain his sense of self, I think, and also try to honor his friend Mary Reed and fight for a bigger cause than himself. Adewale has the best line in this game, and he says it's hard to be friends with a man who cares only for himself. To which Edward is like, no, you're right, I'm an ass. He returns to England after accepting a royal pardon, and he takes care of his daughter, and he meets his second wife and marries her, and has Hatham. The last achievement in this game on Xbox is, I believe it's called I Knew It, or like, of course, or something like that. And in case you were wondering, when Hatham is 10 and Edward is like 55, he gets murdered by the Templars, and then his son gets taken in by that Templar, who he thought was a friend. He gets taken in by that Templar and becomes a Templar. So, yeah. The game is beautiful. It takes place around Cuba and Jamaica primarily, though there's like a small section where you get to go to Africa for like a second. The seafaring has been massively improved. Given that it's the majority of the gameplay in this game, that was a given. They were going to have to improve it. Hunting now includes sea creatures. You can hunt whales and sharks and stuff like that. There's also diving, and said sharks will attack you. That's probably the most annoying part of the game. The tree climbing is also completely necessary now. I didn't feel like the tree climbing was as necessary in Assassin's Creed 3, but in Assassin's Creed 4, completely necessary. Eagle Vision will now show you the paths that people are walking, which was a great addition, and it also show you enemies through buildings. Enemies will also stay lit for a short amount of time after your Eagle Vision goes away. They're dancers for blending, and they're also free, unlike the courtesans. Assassin's Creed 3 had no blending as far as I was aware. It's very useful in this game, and oh my god, I wish they'd bring it back. It's the oldest profession. There could literally be prostitutes in every single one of these games. It is the oldest profession in the world. This game is also the first to include Ubisoft Club, which I like a lot about 4, but we start with what I don't like for sake of clarity. This is a me thing. I dislike the level of work required to fight the legendary ships. I feel like unless you are just really good at the seafaring battles, there is no way to defeat them. And like, it's not that I'm bad at the seafaring battles. Like my ship, this last playthrough, I only lost, technically, I only desynchronized like twice in the entire game while I was doing a seafaring battle. I don't like how much work that takes. Yeah, I don't get the fleet thing. Kind of like the homestead. I don't understand what capturing the ships does and like where I send them. It was confusing. Up to Blackbeard's death, Edward is insufferable. Don't get me wrong, I love him, but Altair's arrogance served as a tool for this character to have a way to learn all of these skills and also learn the story because Altair didn't know everything. Neither does Edward, but because we don't like get super humbled till Blackbeard's death, so he's insufferable. Edward sucks and he's upset with capitalism, but not in like a Robin Hood way. So he's annoying. Edward's just lucky that the assassins forgave him because he messed up their whole operation for a second. So, side note, Freedom Cry with Adewale is about Adewale, and Hatham gets to meet him, and Shay also kills Adewale. I'm not playing Rogue. That's where Hatham dies. Not Hatham. That's where Adewale dies. I'm not playing Rogue. I can't, man. Adewale also tells Hatham that his father would be disappointed in him, which he would be. So, anyway, I love the seafaring, all of it. I love the weather. I love the fights. I love the forts. I love the she shanties. I love the boarding. It's so much fun. I grew to also love the diving and the hunting. Man, I love Adewale. I love Edward's story. I love the fact that he has my favorite trope in all of literature or media, which is of arrogant character getting humbled. Just sit down somewhere, Edward, because you're not everything you think you are. I do appreciate the fact that he stayed loyal to his wife, even though he did leave. He never slept with anybody else in the game, and when he was offered, he was like, "No, I have a wife. I'm not doing that," which I appreciate that. The last scene with all of his friends at the table makes me cry every time I see it. Um, Eagle Vision was massively improved in this game, and then in Unity they messed it up promptly. Uh, I like hacking the computers, and I like how Abstergo said that Desmond donated his DNA. He did not donate his DNA. They found him in the temple after he sacrificed himself to save the planet, and they took his body. Um, yeah. The collectibles, while widespread, are easy to find. The game lists all collectibles and assassin contracts in the hub, which then it like disappears. Uh, I like how he joins the Brotherhood. I get the sense that he never told his daughter that he was an assassin based off of like some of what Hatham's writings. Hatham has a journal. You can like actually read it. I get the sense that he never told his daughter that he was an assassin, and also that his sisters never told that he was a Templar. So, yeah. Um, he was training Hatham before he died, unlike Ezio's dad. And I like that there are double guns. I didn't care for the trailer. Um, Now, this game is the first game where we will experience what has later become a forgotten plot point: the sages. So when Juno's husband died, she made sure that he would be reincarnated, I guess, and the way she can tell is by the people who have the heterochromia in their eyes. All of them are sages, and at some point they will start seeing the symbols that Clay drew on the wall, because now instead of being like a small thing, it's a catch-all for the Isu. I hate Juno. What? I still don't even know what she wants. Does she want to take over the world? Is she Ultron? Because she ends up in the internet and then we promptly forgot about her. I hate Juno. My god. So before I leave you with this last video, I felt like it should have some sort of conclusion, that the conclusion shouldn't be at the end of the second video and we just like leave off here and this is just where it ends. I felt like there should be a conclusion. So here's the conclusion. We're going to reflect. No matter how you feel about these games, excluding Liberation, Freedom Cry, and Rogue for a second, this is the golden era of Assassin's Creed. Like, people absolutely adore all of these games, and they're coming back around to 3, which is great. People aren't really coming back around to Unity. And Syndicate was just more of the same, so like, Ezio is on top and Altair is at the bottom. In my opinion, that's a result of Altair's game, not necessarily him as a character. Uh, these games just have a specialness about them. Woo! Sorry, this isn't makeup. This is face paint. I was not expecting it to do that. These are makeup wipes. They've been working pretty well, but I did not know that the black was gonna do that. Good God. Sorry, I was not expecting it to look like that. Okay. Well then. Um, yeah. These games all are connected by a linear story that the other games lack. And you can tell that they knew that they lacked it because then they introduced Layla. And I swear to God, we'll get to it when we get to it. Your connecting thread through the rest of these games is going to be Sean and Rebecca, with the exception of Odyssey, but we'll get to it when we get to it. I hate that game. But these games have a linear story that is somehow connected, even when you're inside the Matrix, which is what was annoying about those other games. All of these characters are related to Desmond somehow, and that somehow makes it feel important. Even if you don't like Desmond, that somehow makes it feel important. I don't like Desmond, but he's not wrong. You have to admit, Abstergo is a multi-million-dollar company living in capitalism and taking advantage of it. What do they have to be threatened by a cult in the middle of nowhere? Which is essentially what the Assassins have become by the 90s. They're just a cult somewhere, and then their farm gets burned down. So, like, what? Ugh. Desmond is the stronger character because he's also more sympathetic than Layla. You'll understand why once we meet her. Ezio and Altair are fantastic to me. Connor and Edward are my faves. I love them more than I love Ezio and Altair, honestly. the family theme hits harder with them due to a break in the assassinating because of Hatham. So them being linked through assassins rather than knowing each other just hits harder for some reason. I'll discuss the whole family theme later. The role of Destiny and the Isu becomes less self aware by Edward, but that's not a bad thing to me. Edward's family wasn't meant to be tied to the Brotherhood. It's just that if he never decides to become a privateer, Edward doesn't become an assassin. Because that was why he became a pirate, which is why he became an assassin. Um, Ezio and Altair were born into it. Even if Ezio didn't know it yet, they were born into the Brotherhood. The Kinways were not meant to get tied up in all of this. Granted, Hatham still could have been a Templar, but his dad might not have died. His dad may not have cared. But actually, if he doesn't become a privateer, Hatham doesn't exist. So yeah, the Kinways were never meant to get involved in all of this. Um, Hang on. Connor also, even if Edward and Hatham went on their paths, Connor didn't have to become an assassin. He was manipulated by Juno. Of course he was. I hate her. Every time I mention her, I'm going to say that I hate her. Ezio and Altair knew that their lives weren't their own. Ezio knew about Desmond because of Minerva. Altair just kind of knew that his life wasn't meant to be lived for him. I didn't talk about the Isu stuff very much because it wasn't mentioned a whole lot in the games. The first game, there's like not a single mention of it at all. It's just that there are these apples and they were left by someone. Who were they? Who knows? The second game is the first time we meet Minerva. And like we only meet her until we get to 3, where we get to meet Jupiter and Juno. And Jupiter explains to Desmond what's going to happen. Also, I just want to put this out there. I don't know very much about meteorological history, but I'm pretty sure that if a sun wave happened that was large enough to cause like mass extinction from the sun and not an asteroid, I feel like there would be some way to tell that. I don't know very much about meteorological history, but scientists can tell how old a tree is based off of the rings on the tree. So I feel like there would be a way to tell. Hang on. Yeah, I hate the Isu. Juno made no sense as evidenced by her abandoned plot point. I think Ubisoft felt like floundered after they killed Desmond. Because they weren't dedicated to the modern era, but the lack of direction now, and Sean and Rebecca become our through line, with Juno and her husband completely disappearing. I believe they're in the DLC of Odyssey, but like not following this plot point. If Black Flag had been the end of these games, I wouldn't have minded. That would have been great. Like, remember that time in 2013 when Ubisoft created an Assassin's Creed game? Like, that would have been the end of it. That would have been great. Instead, we got bonus games. Instead, we are now on a dead horse. The horse has been dead for a good nearly a decade now. Because if this game came out in 2013 and we're in 2022, the horse has been dead for about a decade now. Like, they revived it for a second in 2017 and promptly killed it again. Yeah. Despite being 2 games away from the truly RPG games, Unity and Syndicate are just, I can't even really identify what it is. They're just missing something. Yeah. We still want a female assassin to have her own game in her own right. They've kind of found a very woke way around that, which I dislike, but this would have been a good place to stop. I miss when things had an end. Let it end, Ubisoft. Just let the series end, or take a break like you did with Origins. I guess technically they did with Valhalla and Mirage, but like, just let it end. Honestly, just let it end.